In the book, you talk about the need for, I guess let's sort of get to kind of what do we do, kind of that, which is, again, solve the climate crisis when. But no, what you talk about in the book is the need for a new kind of engagement, or also you say it also might be a very old kind of engagement. What are you talking about there?
Right. Well, at that point in the book, I'm it's near the beginning.
Yeah.
And I've just gone deep on Henry David Thoreau, and which was really is it sounds kind of hokey, but the book really did begin with my whole journey kind of began with a walk to Walden Pond.
Literally walking in Thoreau's footsteps.
Literally walking the 5 or 6 miles up the road from my house to Walden Pond. And as I say, the first few times I did that, it really had nothing to do with the planet or climate change or even much to do with Henry David Thoreau. I was just at a point in my life where I needed to get out and take some good long walks. But around 2009, 2000, especially the spring of 2010, when things were really hitting the fan in terms of climate. We had seen the Copenhagen disaster in 2009. The UN climate talks fall apart there. We saw the climate legislation, die in the Senate. And it was really a key turning point, I think, for the climate movement, where people realized that, we're going to have to get serious about building a grassroots climate movement. So it was around that same time it coincided with my own kind of decision to start working on climate, to start writing about it and engaging as an activist. And I made a deliberate point of walking away from my mainstream media career at that point. Mm-hmm. And it had to do with going back to Thoreau. And what I learned about Thoreau, that of course I always knew, but had never really thought about it that much, is that Henry David Thoreau, while he was a great naturalist and quite possibly even our first ecologist, he had a very scientific mind and very closely observed the natural world. He was also a deeply spiritual guy. And a spiritual writer. But most of all, what I realized is Henry David Thoreau, this icon of the American environmental canon, was not an environmentalist, a term that really wouldn't have meant anything to him. It's an anachronism,
right.
To call him an environmentalist. But what he was, for sure, was a radical abolitionist, okay? Henry Thoreau was a radical abolitionist, and he put his own, skin in the game. He was deeply engaged in the Underground Railroad. He personally sheltered and escorted escaped slaves on their way to Canada. He even stood up for John Brown right after the Harper's Ferry raid at no small risk. That was a time it was very dangerous to do that. And he even helped ferry a Harper's Ferry conspirator out of Concord, a man who had a price on his head. A lot of people don't realize this about Thoreau, that there were moments in his life when he really engaged personally, physically. Not just his refusal to pay his poll tax and spending a night in Concord jail, but he really acted in solidarity with his fellow human beings, and that really got me to thinking. I was at this point, as we realize that the climate catastrophe is the biggest human rights issue of our time. What we need to find sources of inspiration for that kind of struggle. Now, there are plenty of sources. You don't have to go all the way to Henry David Thoreau, of course. But for me, it was that realizing that if slavery was the greatest, as of course it was, human rights catastrophe of 18th and 19th centuries, and of course earlier, then global warming, with everything that it means for innocent human beings, overwhelmingly, including racially, people of color, people who've done nothing to cause this, people who are still oppressed by the legacy of that very same slavery and colonialism. A global economic system that itself was built on white supremacism. The very same economic system that is now driving climate change. When you add this all up, it seemed to me that that you can say that global warming is by far the greatest human moral catastrophe of our own time, and so therefore we need a movement that's every bit as radical and morally serious as the abolitionist movement was in its time. So that's what I meant by maybe a very old kind of engagement. That we can reach back into our own history here and find sources of inspiration for what we need to do now.